There were moments where we get sidetracked on different things. And then after I'd published the paper, I got this invitation to go to meet with Dalai Lama.
And since Shakespeare himself never left anything, there are no manuscripts, no poems, no plays, not a letter. He never wrote a letter to anyone. No one ever saw him. That's one of the most mind-boggling things of all. He's got the greatest 25-year career in London. He's like a cross between J.K. Rowling and Spielberg and Tom Cruise. And yet, anybody write about ever seeing him? I was at the Mermaid Tavern last night, and there was Bill having a pint and writing a scene from Macbeth. No, no one ever saw him.
And so much of how I feel is I'm falling in love with it, which is interesting because I think that's the real purpose, to learn how to fall in love with life the way that it is. Okay.
And what a journey it has been.
What a journey it has been.
Did either of us suspect,
No.
really?
No.
When that first day happened?
It's quite incredible.
It was, yeah, it's a blessing. It's a tremendous blessing for me, and I want to thank you just right off from the start, because it's just, all relationships have a bumpy ride from time to time. It's only natural, but you look at the goal and you look at where we're going and you go, I could really never have imagined, where this was ending. I mean, you were just getting into... You called me, said, I'm a big farmer, but I've seen the light. I've seen the light, Alan. I want to do something good in the world. And I went, yeah. It's like you do, like, who is this? And here you are, doing tremendous good, and we're all doing,
You've got a television show now, the inimitable Alan Green, who's been an incredible friend of mine and partner for almost 6 years now.
Yeah, it's going on.
And I think the best place to start this discussion is from the very beginning, at least in this incarnation.
Why not?
Why not? So it's kind of a funny story that I always kind of go back to the first time calling you, because I was like... Wow, this guy, I'd seen his videos and everything, and it was kind of esoteric. So it wasn't like you had a gigantic following yet at that time. It's grown a lot.
I had hardly any following. I wasn't doing any promotion.
But I was a big fan already.
Cave.
I was a big fan. So I was like, I got to get a hold of Alan Green. And I could not get a hold of you until finally you picked up the phone. And I said to you, I'm not going to waste your time. I know you're a busy man. I said, I'm going to tell you one thing. And if you don't find any merit in the discussion of it, then you don't have to talk to me again. and so he said, okay, go on. Like literally, you weren't going to give me that much time either. And I said, well, have you considered that maybe Yahweh? He goes, yes. Aye.
No, Yod Hey
Vav Hey.
Yeah.
And it was like Ashe, Aye, Ashe, and I was like, yeah. And he said, yes, I know that. What about it? And I said, have you maybe considered that might be a math equation? He's like, already I had your attention at that.
Yeah, sure.
And you're like, okay, go on. And I said,
but I got to tell you, every time you tell this, I get ruder and ruder. It's the funniest thing. You're going, and he went, yes, hurry up.
Yeah, exactly.
I was giving you time, but I wasn't that curt. I was going to give you 5 minutes.
5 minutes.
Pure minutes of my time.
5 pure minutes of your precious time.
So
That's
you
right.
go, and you hook me with that.
So I hook you with that. And so then I said, well, what if it's the shape of the Hebrew letters is actually pi times 7 and pi to the 7th power? Or since we read backwards, Yod He Vav He would be pi to the 7th power, possibly divided by pi times 7.
I'm trying to do the look now that I had.
Yeah, and I said, and would you be surprised to know? He goes, what does that equal? And I said, 137.
Okay, let's talk more.
That's right. Then you said, wow. You said, okay, you got my attention. And of course, for those that don't know, 137 is the fine structure constant, which is literally the mirror of consciousness, or the separation between light and darkness. And the realization that what we call darkness is not really the absence of light. When you understand the physics of it, it's actually the absorption of light. Mm-hmm. So it was such a profound conversation we had. And it's funny that that fine structure constant is alpha. It's the Greek letter alpha, which means bull, Aleph.
Yeah.
And then only a few weeks later, I knew I was going to go back to Egypt. And I said, I'm going back to Egypt, and I feel like I'm going to discover something. I don't know necessarily what it is, but I just have this strong impression something's going to come. And I said the same thing to Nassim Haramein. And he's like, yeah, I'm sure he was like, yeah, sure, whatever, right? And
well, we didn't know you yet.
Yes, that's right.
We didn't know that this was kind of like you do.
Like you do.
I have a feeling something's going to happen, and then it happens. So okay, so you went, and you called me
from the pyramid.
From the pyramid.
You're the first person I called, and I said, Alan, I was just in the pyramid, and I discovered an Alpha Omega on the rim of the sarcophagus, and I think I sent you a picture right away.
You did, yeah.
And I knew the moment that I discovered it, because I had remembered it. That's how I knew where to find it, because it's not easy to find. I mean, even if you know kind of where it is, even I go in there sometimes. The light is so tricky, because if the light is directly on it, you literally can't see it.
Yeah, because it's bas relief. It's not cut in. It's up, and you've got to shine the light just the right way. But it's very, very, very subtle. Yeah.
Yeah, it's super subtle. So it's like when I called you and told you that, did you think I was crazy? Something isn't right. The ease of modern digital communication comes with costs. What are these colossal technology companies doing with our words, with our energy, and with our very beings? Can you imagine an event horizon where they use against us what we unknowingly gave? Orion emerges as an end-to-end quantum secure messenger that places the freedom of expression back where it belongs, with the people. More than a platform, it's a movement to reclaim your voice and freedom, a movement of people with profound ideas and a deep desire to help the human race. Let's get back to communicating meaningfully in our lives. It's time to rise above the surveillance, the shadow bans, and the censorship. It's time to free our voices. In a time when free speech and assembly are absolutely necessary, Orion stands tall, ensuring that you can free your voice.
Honestly, no, I really didn't. I'm being serious now. No, I didn't think you were crazy. No, I knew you wouldn't just say, oh, I found that. I mean, it was almost inevitable. There was a growing recognition then, because had you not come to my... No, you hadn't come to my place.
No, I hadn't come yet.
That's
I hadn't
right.
come until like about...
Oh, okay. All right, in that case, I did think you were crazy.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, so...
I think I came in July.
Come to my place.
I came in July. So it was about 2 months after that I actually came.
Yeah. No, so okay. Yeah.
Then we spent the whole day together.
So yeah, we hadn't yet met. Mm-hmm. That's right. So you got to recap that where you did call me. I probably did think you were crazy at that point. But then once I'd met you and we'd had a time together. But Robert, you came in with this bursting to the seams brown book case. It was full of hand drawings. Mm-hmm. Crayoned, it seemed like they were. There was a lot of color. It wasn't even painted.
Mm-hmm. They were penciled. It was like colored pencils.
Right? Colored pencils. But a ton of them, right?
A ton of it.
Mm-hmm. And obviously at that time, I mean, you're not going to say to somebody, oh, I'll give you 2 hours, 3 hours. I said, well, I've got an hour, come on over. So you came to my place and you started showing me all this stuff, which was really fascinating. But you weren't even putting those discoveries or those intuitions into the Mac yet. You weren't even using.
No, I didn't even use a computer then at all.
No.
I'd forgotten how to use a computer for all those years of being a CEO. I had CEO-itis.
So anyway, you show up and we're hitting it off. It's like, this is cool stuff. And I show you a bit of mine, and you show me more and more of yours, and I show you a little bit of mine, you show me more and more of yours. It's just going on and on and on. And who was with us? Alex?
Alex Asdurian,
right? Who was sort of an assistant of yours at the time. But it was getting good. It was getting really fascinating because they were beautifully drawn, and they were obviously inspired pieces with these ideas. Now, they weren't yet proven. They were just inspirations of notes of things that I might eventually find a way to prove eventually, right? Yeah. But it looked great. Well, 1 hour stretched to 2 hours, stretched to 3 hours. Yeah. We were there 11 hours. And we weren't finished. And so you said, well, we have to continue this tomorrow. How about you come to my place, which is here?
Yeah, that's right.
And I did. I drove in here the next morning to finish that conversation, right? And I remember I walked into one of your offices where you were doing a podcast. Well, I don't know if it was a podcast. You were doing resonance science.
Yeah, it was resonance science update or
thing.
something.
Yeah, but there was an audience.
It was my first course series.
Okay.
That was my first course series.
So it was a live audience. Maybe, who knows how many, I don't know, 50 people on or something, maybe more.
A couple hundred, I think.
And I'm sitting in a chair like this next to you. You invite me in. Oh, Alan's just arrived. Come on in, sit down. And the magic of it was that we were discovering things mutually in real time on that call. The one I remember specifically is you were talking about the Emerald Tablets and Thoth basically saying he uses the word builded the pyramid, right? Shakespeare uses that same expression, builded, when he's referring to the pyramid. And I went, oh my God, there's a sonnet connection there. And we went this, and then another one, and another one. But we were really actually finding real things, real connections between who would know there was a connection. Your work in, what would you even say it was at the time? You were still really only just getting into what...
I was looking at math as a linguistical model.
Yeah.
It was more language oriented.
But I had been doing already by that time, 5 or 6 years ago, I've been on it 19 and a half years now, the Shakespeare work. So I was at 14 and a half years or something like that, doing the Shakespeare work. So I started going, oh, well, that's Shakespeare, and that's that, and the connections were just happening like this. It was the most remarkable thing, because I remember after that the podcast or whatever it was shut down. You invited me into the other office to meet Vic. And started talking about, how much do you want to work here? It's like, what? Yeah. Right off the bat, you were saying, you got to come and work here. Wait, whoa, slow down, baby. You haven't even bought me dinner yet. Yeah. It's like, wow. But it was real. It was just like, oh yeah, we probably should be. It's amazing, wasn't it?
Yeah, and I asked you to be a director of cryptography for the company.
And I said, oh, come on, let's not overstate it. That's ridiculous. I know about Renaissance cryptography. I have a connection.
And I'm like, doesn't every company need a Renaissance cryptographer or cryptologist?
We know now they need one. Every company needs one.
That's right.
But I'm spread too thin already. I can't go work for everybody.
Yeah.
No, everybody needs a Renaissance cryptographer. No, but I'm going, well, yeah, I am an expert Renaissance cryptographer. I've got a connection. All right. I've got a hotline to that. I'm connected. I understand it. Who knows why? But it's there. But you said, you'll be director of cryptography. And I went, oh, come on. I don't know anything about modern day cryptography. That's silly. You forming a cryptography company? Were you?
Yes.
Yes, he was. And I've still
Well,
got,
because
and I've still got
after
the
I had, this is how fast things move. After I had discovered the Alpha Omega, which until that moment, I had no desire to be in cryptography. I didn't even know that it was going to be an interesting thing.
Exactly.
Until that moment, I, had no thought to leave healthcare or do anything different. And after I discovered the Alpha Omega, a week later is when Talal and I published the ability to predict prime numbers infinitely using a mod 24 analysis and discovery of a new class of numbers called quasi-primes.
All based on Peter Plichter's work and the icosahedron, and I'd read his book a lot, and I thought there was that connection. I thought I was beginning to find that interesting. I was maybe 2 years into the math codes in Shakespeare, because for those that don't know, I'm decoding Shakespeare, but obviously you think most of all it might be codes in the poetry, in the plays, and that's what I was doing for 6 years. But then I was into the next stretch of, but there are mathematical codes as well. Nobody knows that, And so I'd been boning up on a lot of that stuff of geometry and the prime numbers. So Peter Plichter's work came in, and you'd got that same intuition about the 24-hour wheel and where the prime numbers lay.
And the numbers that weren't prime, and why they weren't prime, and why they were related to the 24ness, and how their reciprocal values had digital sums of 9 as well, and how they're basically just produced by prime numbers. And my whole effort was trying to understand the numbers in the middle of the cross, Templar cross, which was
forms a Templar cross, and you're like,
the math constants, and so the constants were being made by 2 prime numbers that they were adjacent to. And I realized as well that all those numbers in the center of the cross were basically the numbers that we use to reckon time.
Yeah. And you had no idea that it was going to go into banking.
No. It was
Diffie-Hellman conjecture. Everything that RSA is based on. The entire structure of our economy is based on this ability to, or the non-ability.
We found the geometric relationship of primes.
Yeah.
And from that could predict it. And then people that were working in the computer science industry said to me, this could cause a problem for cryptography. Because prime numbers aren't supposed to be predictable like this. So, and I said, well, what's that have to do with anything? They're like, well, it's based on prime factorization. I'm like, so you're saying that maybe because I found a geometric relationship to the distribution of primes, that there must therefore be a geometric relationship to the factorization of primes. And that's what we were trying to figure out. And ultimately we did. We found that there is a geometric relationship to it. And one thing led to another. And next thing I know, I'm starting a cryptography company.
Like you do.
Exactly. Things move pretty fast. I mean, it's hard to see it sometimes when you're in the middle of it, because it's like, sometimes we're so close to the tree, it's hard to see the forest.
Yeah. It's wonderful to recap it now, actually, because it's bringing it all back, and you go, those off-site meetings that we had, and predicting where would we be in a year's time with the company, and it all pretty much all came true the way it was being manifested by the overall group. I mean, we had some wonderful people.
That's when we decided
very, very
data
quickly.
sovereignty, and we wanted to have a communication platform for people that could be entirely encrypted and not be censored. And this is well before the world went into this wild zone during the pandemic of censorship and fact checkers and deplatforming and all these problems that just ensued right after that. So it was almost like this bizarre convergence of events that were exactly aligned. And plus I had been getting kind of the memo from the universe somehow, some way, that this was a really necessary thing to do. And we didn't know how it was going to come to fruition, but we just went forward.
Well, that's the joy of it, isn't it? You often make, what's the saying? If you want to make God laugh, tell her your plans. Right? No. Just go with the flow, because the divine is going to give you something far more amazing than you could even imagine yourself. Just keep going with the flow. You say to you it was like remembering, and I have the same experience. My ability to bring out these Shakespeare codes, always just feels like memory. I just like, oh, I remember that. And then I go there and you go, oh yeah, of course it's there. Or sometimes it might come in a dream, but mostly it's just like a remembrance, right? Not to overstate it. It doesn't matter who, if you were there, you know, if you were actually incarnated there or whatever, but that, it just feels like that. It's like, oh, got an inkling. How do I know that? All right.
Yeah, it's true. I know the feeling. I know it well. And, you know, it just one thing sort of led to another. And I think this was a perfect example of just following our intuition. There were moments where we get sidetracked on different things. And then after I'd published the paper, I got this invitation to go to meet with the Dalai Lama. And I asked, of course, Alan to come along with me on that journey, and you came with me to Peru. And I remember landing in Peru, in Cusco, which was already like, it's kind of hard to breathe.
Yeah.
And then we went straight up the mountain, if you remember, right after that. And you were like wheezing a bit, and I was like, oh God, this would be really bad if he just kicked it right here.
Sure.
Yeah.
Because neither of us are in the best shape. I'm in awful shape. Robert is still doing all right. But he's 20 years younger than me. But we were not enjoying that. climb. Yeah. But it was great, and Nassim was there, and then so it ends up being you and Nassim and me going to see His Holiness. What?
I know what, right? It's like it does seem like our lives kind of took this turn around that time towards this whole everything turned into kind of like flow and kind of seemed magical. Everything seems magical. Like I was just having lunch with an old friend today and was explaining to her, who used to work here a long time ago, explaining to her what I've been up to. Because she says, what have you been up to for the last 10 years?
How can I even synopsize it? What did you say?
I'm like, well, I mean, you just go through the list of things that sounds so ridiculous. And you almost just say, you know what, I'm doing fine. Just like leave it alone. It's too hard to explain.
Yeah.
But it did seem like we've had some incredible experiences, you know, along this journey.
Oh, sure. Well, India, what did we learn there? I mean, we went straight to Dharamsala. Well, I remember having our first day of getting off the plane in Delhi, and we went to some local restaurant, obviously, and we were all talking about, well, how are we going to approach this? Who should go forward, you know? Because I've got a little bit of work that I'd be interested in him seeing. He had some work that he would, you know, we'd already sort of pre-planned, well, should we show this?
Yeah, we had little pre-planned sessions, everything.
The Vesica part, and all right. But it seemed kind of obvious that the best person of the three to kind of go forward right away would be Nassim, because Nassim had already proven the entire universe fits inside one proton, or the mass of the universe. But His Holiness had already written a book, The Entire Universe in a Single Atom. So that was the connection, wasn't it? It was like, well, you give him that first, and then we know we're on solid ground. So Nassim gives him that, and what happens? It was the funniest thing. I love telling this story.
Which part?
Well, you know, there's a bit of chit chat, and there's a bit of just casual, normal stuff. What do you do? What do you do? What do you do? You know. But then Nassim comes forward with, well, I've, you know, back in 2013, I happened to be able to measure the radius, the proton radius, to such accuracy that we got it proven by a hadron collider, not the large one, but another one in France. And what? He's come up with a number that is 0.03% off compared to the rest of physics, which is like 40% off, because they can't figure out what dark matter is. So they just invent a number to make quantum mechanics and relativity kiss and make up, because they never do.
They never do.
And they must both be perfectly right. So Nassim says that. I can show you the equation. Shows it to His Holiness. And he goes, we didn't know what he said. Something to the other monks, and they all scattered like cockroaches when you turn the light on. They went, and we thought, oh shit, we messed up. What happened, right?
Yeah.
And it didn't seem like the end of the interview. It was okay, but we had no idea what he said. But these guys all went running. And so we sort of carried on, like, oh, are we over that hurdle? What just happened there?
Yeah.
And about half an hour later, after talking about your work and a little bit of mine and more of Nassim's, he says, okay, now we have lunch. And it turned out we learned from what was his name? The monk who...
Lama Tenzin.
Lama Tenzin. We said to him next time, what did he say? And
His Holiness wants to invite you to stay for lunch.
He said, this is going to be longer talk. Prepare lunch. And they did. And then we had lunch in his private quarters.
And he'd only done that twice before, he said, with Desmond Tutu and Michelle Obama.
And Michelle Obama. And we were there for how long? About 4 hours in his own place, 4.5 hours in his own room. And there he is. You know, you think, His Holiness, drinking tab.
Yeah. He's like, it's all fake. What does it matter?
Something's wrong with this picture. Eating crisps and drinking tab. Yeah. Okay. No, but they prepared this food and it was wonderful. And and the marvelous thing about him, and I'm sure about any truly there enlightened being, is they just make you feel like we're just friends because we should be. You know, it's just like, we're just chatting in his living room. No airs.
He kept pulling the Sim's hair.
Yeah. He loved to do that, yeah.
He did.
He's just childlike, isn't he? He's just there. He's in joy.
No, it was quite an experience. And then, remember, we had that state dinner where we had the dancing.
I didn't. I hadn't eaten meat in 55 years.
You didn't go to the dinner that night?
I went to the dinner, but I had salad.
We had the dancing.
A steak dinner.
Yeah. No, state, as in like...
Oh, I thought you said steak
head
dinner.
of state, not
Okay.
steak.
Cut.
Yeah.
And, I loved that steak dinner we had.
Yes, that's right. It was a great time. They had that dancing show. Yes, the dancers and everything.
Oh, it just went on and on and on. It was a wonderful experience after another. The culture, the marketplace. It's amazing.
It was an amazing trip. I mean, everything about that was amazing. And something felt like we were going in a corridor there, too, because right after that, we went to Mexico. And that's when Nassim and I both became shaman for the Toltec tribe. Which
I wasn't on that trip.
You weren't on that trip,
No.
but it was really a beautiful one. And then that was the week before the first COVID patients. And Nassim had been gifted a mask. And then the next week, everyone starts wearing masks around the world. It was the most bizarre thing. And then we went to Egypt together in 2020.
Yeah.
And that was incredible because that's when we were all together and Susie discovered the cow and the bull on the wall.
On the north wall.
On the north wall. And we started seeing things that were matching with the Last Supper painting, which was bizarre. All of it started coming together. And that's when I got a call from History Channel. And History Channel, I was in Egypt with us, and they called and said, we've been following your work, and we'd like to buy out the rights to this story. And I said, I'm going to need to have like creative control. And they said, well, we can't, we don't do that with anybody. And I said, well, then I don't do it. And luckily I had the opportunity with Gaia. And Gaia rang and said, we'd like to do it, and you can have creative control.
Yeah.
Final edit, which was very important to me. And it all worked out. And then you ended up with a show as well. I mean, it's been such an incredible journey. And, I also kind of look back to the time that when William was born, my son, and I was looking at Vitruvian Man, and something triggered me right in that. And I rang you and I said, Alan, the Vitruvian Man has the pyramid slope angle embedded within it. The square and the circle don't really match in any way, shape, or form. Why did Da Vinci do this? Well, it gives us perfectly the slope angle of the Great Pyramid. And then I was drawing circles that I knew looked like and forming a flower of life over him. And the way the circles were drawn were touching each of the lines where the lines were in the body, and I knew it was something related to chakras. And then I remember you calling back and saying, all right, I've got something. And this happens all the time with us. Like, We don't even coordinate 95% of our work.
No, we just tend to be working on the same thing at the same time from different angles, which is very curious, isn't it? But it happens so many times that we just take it for granted now. It's not an exaggeration. We joke about it often, but sometimes you'll call me up at 4 a.m. because you know I'm up. You know, I'm just like you. You know, we're both up. But I do want to say what I actually said the very first time you called me, saying I'm doing the Vitruvian Man.
Yeah.
I said, "What are you doing the Vitruvian Man for? Your wife's in labor. you're outside the door drawing the Vitruvian Man." Going, Robert.
She had an epidural. I couldn't do anything. She was sleeping.
Okay, all right.
There was nothing to have been done.
But after that,
Yes.
I said, well, I think your intuition is right, but I don't think it's quite that same place that you're talking about. Because I'm going to take control now. Welcome to my show. I'm speaking with Robert Grant here.
Here,
No,
speak to the microphone.
It often happens this way, but you had actually drawn the Vitruvian Man from memory, and you're drawing it. So obviously it was very close, but it wasn't spot on. So you thought the angle was there. I look at the real one and say, well, you're right, your intuition is right, but it's here. And then we continue working on it and growing it into what became a lovely video about, what did we call it? The Real Da Vinci Code?
Real Da Vinci Code.
The Real Da Vinci Code, yeah. In which it's not just the idea that Da Vinci drew all these lines, interestingly, that cross certain points in the Vitruvian Man and the arms, but that they are, well, first of all, the length of them is all integrally related to mathematic ratios that are too much to go into here, but they're all significant. But then they're in the position of the chakras. So it became obvious that, the king's chamber, the queen's chamber, the subterranean chamber, these are chakra positions. So obviously the other lines must refer to hidden chambers that we haven't discovered yet. It's quite simple, really. Like, it is,
Yes.
isn't it?
It is. Well, it's
all-
not a mental leap. It's not a mental leap. Once you come to that conclusion, yes.
Yeah. And like all things, I don't know if it's just apocryphal that Einstein said, if a theory has got to be just beautiful. If it's beautiful, then it might be real, But if it's not beautiful, it can't be real. He wants it to be, which makes sense. It's divine. Yeah. So we're looking at that, and we got this wonderful narrator to do it, Craig, who used to be Brother Mitrananda. He was in Yogananda's ashram for 35 years. He was a monk,
wow.
and he left the ashram to go into business as really a spiritual business entrepreneur. Most beautiful voice. Anyway, so he's narrating it, and it is a beautiful piece of work. But the beauty
Millions
is
of
that
views.
you get to see the geometry is perfect, and then that led us to see, there are more and more and more things hidden here in the Vitruvian Man than we had at first possibly conjectured. You want to go deeper into that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a fascinating exercise because not only do you find the pyramid proportions in it, you also find that there were two ancient problems that got solved in that one square and circle combo.
Right.
Actually, you could argue a third, which is that the circle is made by pi. The area of the square, and so if the circle has a radius of 1, the area of the circle would be pi, and the area of the square, if it's truly a squared circle, should also be pi. Or the other option, it could have had the same circumference value, which would have been tau, right? And you would have also had to have had the perimeter of the square be tau, but neither were even close to each other.
Right.
The square had an area, however, of the Euler number, which is pretty astounding. 200 years before the Euler number was supposed to have been discovered.
But of course, my work had already shown that there it is on the cover of the sonnets. That on the cover of Shakespeare's sonnets, there's the Euler number.
Which is also before Isaac Newton and before Napier.
Euler minus 1, which connects to, something else, the the universal constant of measure that I had figured out was in the Great Pyramid itself. That foot, cubit, and meter are all there, just in the basic, simple proportions. No cherry picking, just taking the base, the half base, the diagonal, corner slope. So it was all obviously connected, and we started to say, these guys are all in the same club. You know, Da Vinci, De Vere, D. It's the D club. It's the D club. You know, because they're, you know, Da Vinci preceded. Then you got John Dee and De Vere and Shakespeare. And of course, other great masters have come in other disciplines after that, like, you know, Mozart and Debussy. And they all turn out to be grandmasters of the secret organizations of either Rosicrucians or Rosicrucians sort of morph into Freemasonry. It all comes from the Templars, comes from the Egyptian mystery schools. It's all one lineage. And they're all passing down this information in a clever way through their art. They're all hidden in the art.
So beautiful. It's incredible.
Right.
I mean, we've had so many moments of like decrypting these things on weekends, late at night.
On planes.
On airplanes, trains, automobiles, everywhere. And it's just been the most incredible journey. I think when we look back on all of this, I think, you know what I'm going to think?
I don't know, Robert. What are you going to think?
I want to do it all again.
Begin again, maybe?
Yeah. It's kind of funny, right? I mean, it's such a beautiful journey that, like, I probably would choose. I wouldn't change a single thing. I'd be like, let's play the movie again. I probably would.
Yeah, yeah.
But that's how you probably know that it's time to move on.
You can have too much chocolate.
Yeah, that's right.
You can, right?
Yes, that's right. Too much magic.
I heard a nun in Yogananda's ashram say that once. She said, well, I'd had a lot of experience in this, in past incarnations. And you know, it's like chocolate cake. You can have a little too much. You know, you decide, I'm going to move on and do something else, right? But the beauty is you carry that with you.
Yeah.
Right. You might not immediately remember it. Of course you don't immediately remember it unless you have come in already fully awakened, fully awoken, and you're now in some form of enlightened consciousness through the incarnation. That's the goal. I laugh at when people, I don't laugh in the sense of sort of making fun of them, but everyone who gets on the, let's say, the quote, spiritual path, right? We're all on the spiritual path, whether we know it or not. But
AKA the crazy train.
The woo-woo.
That's right.
The woo-woo parade.
Right.
But once you find a certain discipline, right? Like for myself, it's Yogananda, and I've been doing Kriya Yoga for 45 years. And that gives me peace, it gives me bliss, it gives me intuition, I'm very, very happy with that, right? But there is a tendency to sort of go into this phase of, oh, I must be so humble, and I've got to be.
Yeah.
Don't express your ego, because what ego is just Latin for I am. It's the very name of God.
Yes, it's like I'm more humble than you.
Yeah, right.
Do you remember when we were in Dharamsala and I asked the question about why some of the monks were wearing like very tattered looking clothes and the others were wearing very new looking clothes? It's kind of like when you buy a new pair of sneakers and they're too white, you've got to scuff them up a bit.
Yeah.
And so they're
not really humble yet.
That's right. That's what exactly. And then I was like, I asked one of the lamas, I'm like, what's up with that? And he's like, well, you know, there's like this spiritual competition to us. I'm like, that sounds antithetical. He's like, yes, you don't want to be like, if you're going to be spiritual, you have to be like really tattered clothes. You have to have this look. So I'm like, how do they get the tattered clothes? Well, they get the tattered clothes because they'll buy it already tattered. And then it looks more authentic.
Yeah.
That they're like, and I was like,
yeah, they've really been on the path a long time.
He goes, ego has many traps.
Yeah, sure is. Yeah.
It's like,
but that is one of them, and that's one that I have had to learn to balance only recently in order to do the Gaia show. not to go deep into it, but I have a past incarnation, as it were, in this incarnation in music. I was in music a lot, and I was trying to be a rock and roll star when I was young. I was on 5 record labels, blah blah blah, you know. And to live in that world, you've got to be on. You to convince people to give you a record deal and to record you and spend $1 million in the studio. You've got to be, look at me. Right? It's part and parcel of it. You've got to be, you know, you right? Look at this stuff. I am damn good. Listen to this music. And I was like that, you know. And then I had my comeuppance, and I was given my tiny little hit record. I got one hit record that I so wanted. Finally got my hit record, and then the divine said, get out. That's it. That's all I'm giving you. Get out. You'll be dead if you stay in show business, right? But I learned a lot in that. I learned to, you know, to entertain and be funny and all of that. But then I found my spiritual path, and now I'm meditating all the time, right? I'm just launched straight into it, and I'm doing 5 hours a day of meditation. I actually wrote to Yogananda's ashram asking to be a monk because I had no family ties. I wasn't yet married. Got a nice letter back saying, probably not this time. She actually used the word this time. Like, not this time. In other words, like, what do you know? I've been there before? Yeah, probably. No, you can't be a monk. Just stay out doing what you're doing. But then when you get into that idea of, oh, I must suppress all that ego that I was expressing there in the music business, you can often just swing to the other end of the pendulum, and I certainly did, and I see it in a lot of people. It's not a criticism; it's just a natural sort of thing to go, "Oh, I should really be." Yeah. But you know, the great ones don't say that. Yogananda didn't. I'm sure Christ didn't. I'm sure Buddha didn't. I'm sure Muhammad didn't. They say, "You are so special. Show the world how brilliant you are." Right? But just don't get lost in it thinking you're the only one. I am that I am, right? So what helped me actually come to terms with balancing that, because I had gone to the other end. I had literally gone to this other end of just, I don't want to express that. So when you got your Codex show, and then you very graciously invited me to dinner with Jurka, so we sat at dinner together, because you thought, well, that might help Alan get his show, and indeed it did. And Jurka, the first question he asks me is, do you know anything? Oh, you're into Shakespeare, right? Do you know anything about, did Shakespeare translate the King James Bible? Like the perfect question. Because, I've got proof that he did. So I end up with my show. But my producer, who is now your producer as well, Jason Liggett, the wonderful Jason Liggett, comes to me and says, how are you going to do the show? You know, what are you going to, I've seen your work, but how do you intend to put it on in the studio? And I said, well, I just sit behind my computer and I show you the codes and it's all visuals, you know. And he goes, no, that's not going to work. We want you center stage, coming out through a red curtain and telling the world how you found this. And I said, I don't do that. I literally said that at my first production meeting. I said, I don't do that. Oh, no, I can't do that. I've had, my whole past, from my 20s to my mid-40s, I was doing that. Don't want to do that. It's not about me. It's about Shakespeare and John Dee, right? I'm comfortable saying, look what they did. You know what he said to me? It was a blast from somewhere. He just said, I want you to give a masterclass in what it's like to be a Renaissance espionage cryptographer.
Great answer.
I went, and I had to get comfortable with what he wanted. He center stage, looking nice in a nifty jacket, looking professorial but funny as you are and all that. But I want you to tell the story. We're not talking about that. People want to know, why you found this. So I had to get comfortable. I've been there on that extreme of the pendulum. I've been there on that extreme of the pendulum. No, balance it all out and come to the center to recognize, it's all right to recognize that the divine is flowing through you because that's the truth. Just don't think you're the only one in the room that's got this knowledge, We're all in this boat together and we're all the same. And so long as you just speak your truth from that place, and it was a real eye-opener for me. I would never have been able to do that show if Jason hadn't insisted on that.
Wow.
And I came to terms with it. And I think we all have to, because let's face it, we're brilliant. Right? We're brilliant. And so are you. Get used to it.
It's just you forgot you're brilliant.
There's nothing wrong with it. In fact, that's the purpose of being here, to show you are co-creator.
So let me ask you this. So after all of our work in decryption, what has been the synthesis of the message? Why did they do it? And is there even a they?
Yeah, I was going to say, who? They? What?
Exactly.
Why did they do it?
What's been the point of all of this? And how have we changed?
What's it all about?
What's it all about? And also, have you noticed that the pace has greatly increased as far as the new discoveries are going? It has dramatically increased in the past. It's been a steady ascent.
It's always been ascending, but my God, it's like the hockey stick curve, isn't it? It's the same way the economy is going.
It's kind of incredible. Just like me looking through Codex Atlanticus, all of a sudden finding a cross section of Khafre Pyramid inside of it. Are you kidding me? I mean, it's beyond bizarre. But what do you think? I can tell you how I have felt that this message is and what the message is and why it was done and why it's so profound and how it crosses time. But I'd love to hear your thoughts on what it is that this was all done for.
There's no greater joy, and I'm sure you would agree with this, than making a discovery that you think no one else on the planet knows about this yet, and I can't wait to tell them, right? And I can't wait for them to see it and get it, and then for them to then contribute back and come out with more stuff and more stuff, right? So that's a great, exhilarating, almost intoxicating feeling, isn't it? Oh my God, I know this is true, and how exciting it is to rediscover it, right? Because it's all rediscovery, nothing new under the sun.
Exactly.
Right? So why do we do that? Well, my simple evaluation of that is we're first of all, there is just one consciousness that has decided to have a play. I guess sitting around in infinity for eternity gets a bit, we can't say it would get boring, but let's have a creation. Let's forget that we know it, and have, so that we can have that feeling of recapturing it bit by bit by bit. I mean, right? And you've got a piece of the puzzle, and I've got a piece of the puzzle, right? And we're all obviously at different levels of where we're finding stuff, because this Earth is a school, isn't it? Some are in kindergarten, some are in high school, some are in college, some are in university, some are doing post-PhD diploma stuff, right? You don't laugh at the kindergartner saying, you haven't got it yet. What's the matter with you? Wake up, right? It's just a game, right? But the fun part is once you are on that roller coaster of, oh my God, I got it. The divine is in me, and I am in the divine, and you are too, and the whole thing, and it's just a game, and we're reminding each other of our own divinity, and you find something, and I find something, and we go, that's the same thing from different perspectives, and it all becomes clear that there is no separation, right? We're now looking at, what do we call it now? We call it a matrix, right? That's the word we're using for it. It's a simulation, right? So why? I think it's just for the sheer fun of it. I honestly, it's a game. We've got eternity to sit around in bliss. Right? But that's just one aspect of what we are. The finding out and the creating ourselves. So, I'm excited about this thing that I'm creating right now, whether it's a play or a movie or a painting or a scientific discovery, right? Mm-hmm. You've got the same thing. It's the excitement is unbeatable. It's better than sex. Personally, I can't remember, but I think it's better than sex.
Yeah.
So to me, it's that. I sum it up at the end of the Gaia show in this quite succinct way, which I do think was a download at the time, because Jason was saying, we don't quite have the perfect ending. And they went off to lunch, and I stayed in the studio, and I wrote out this thing, and I go, that's it. So I changed completely the ending of of episode 7 of the season. And I said, what do you think? And he goes, well, just do it. And I did it, and they all went, and it was good. So it's this. What's Shakespeare's most well-known phrase or saying?
To be or not to be.
No, actually, it's... yeah, of course, it's to be or not to be. Everybody knows that. It doesn't matter if you're a bushman in the outback somewhere, a Maori. You've heard to be or not to be. Everybody's heard it. What does it mean? That's tricky. Why did he say it with such emphasis in Hamlet? And of course, the common answer is, well, he's debating whether to commit suicide. So it's, should I live, should I die? Maybe theatrically that's part of it. But no, the real ultimate meaning, because he knows what he's writing about. He is there. Right? He's already home. And his job is to remind us, come home. So he's telling us this all the time. But when you finally see, he's saying, you always have the choice. You've got free will. We won't go there quite yet. You've got some free will.
Destiny is the free will of the higher self.
Yeah. But this idea of to be or not to be, you always have the choice to be who you truly are. The I am that I am. Or not to be. And just continue wearing a mask in our communal Midsummer Night's Dream that we're going through over and over and over again. And will you ever run out of time to be doing it? No, of course. There's eternity. Therefore, you can play a zillion roles if you want. And that's what Nick Bottom does in Midsummer Night's Dream. He actually, when he's rehearsing, he says, oh, I want to play this role. No, I want to play that role. I want to play that. Let me play this role. He's literally us. He's every man saying, I want to do everything. Right? While I'm still not completely knowledgeable about who I truly am. But that's it. You have the choice to be. And when you finally get tired of playing all these roles and you see a deeper truth behind it all, you can just take off that mask and be who you are. And I also get the feeling that what he means with that is it's fine to be playing the roles too. I love drama. I wrote all these dramas, Play every drama you want. It's great fun. But there is a deeper truth.
Always.
That's the to be.
Yep.
Be who you really are. Yeah?
So your feel for all of this, the purpose behind all of it, is to remember who we really are.
Exactly.
And why we chose to play this the way that we're playing it.
Yeah.
And that this is all an illusion.
It's a treasure hunt as well. It's like, well, if
Great
it's an
scavenger
illusion,
hunt, treasure hunt.
The,
yes. There's got to be a carrot.
What's the ultimate meaning? Where is it?
It's like never ending.
It is never ending, and I just wrote a piece that I performed in the King's Chamber called Begin Again that I feel pretty much sums it up. It's just like, why would you ever stop? It's such fun anyway.
Yes, that's right.
Begin again. What's next? I still want to create more because I am the creator. All right, so I think it's a balance, isn't it? It's a game, obviously. Obviously, it's a game. It's a puzzle. It's a game. And there's no game like it. It's the best.
Nope, and we're lucky we have great seats. at this game. And we get to be on the field at the same time, too. No, it's been an amazing journey, Alan. It's been quite a journey. So can you give a brief synopsis of what you presented in the Great Pyramid and what this trip that we went on in December was like for you?
Oh, no, I can't give a brief synopsis. You know me, I'm rather long-winded, so that was a foolish question for the host to ask. How much tape have we got?
Yeah.
We don't have tape anymore. It shows how old I am. Tape. Well, the synopsis would be that it's ultimately pulling together all the aspects that we are constantly playing with. It's saying, this poetry, this art.
I will say it was a masterpiece, true masterpiece. Here we are. I have to give this backdrop. I had asked Alan to give a presentation in Egypt with all these big influencers. He was supposed to have surgery on his shoulder, which then he postponed and looked like miraculously healed.
I'm doing really well with it. I just decided I am not going to listen to that surgeon, and I am going to cooperate with the divine and physician, heal thyself. And honestly, it's coming along fine.
Yeah.
He still looks at the X-rays and the MRIs and says, "No, it's you need a new shoulder." But I don't believe so.
No, I think you're doing quite well. But it was interesting because I invited you to come on this trip, and I told Alan he'd have the opportunity to present to a lot of people who have very large followings. And so he called me back and he said, and I was planning on him presenting in the Mina House or something. And then he called me back. He said, "I'd like to do my presentation in the Great Pyramid." And I was like, "Well, okay. Never seen a presentation in the Great Pyramid before. It's a bit hot in there.
Can you do that?
It's hot any time of the year. Is that even possible?" And he's like, "Yes, I've got music and everything, and I've made arrangements. It's all good. Don't worry about it." He said, "I'll just do it then." I said, "Okay." And then I heard a rumor that you'd rented a white tuxedo, which I thought was a little unorthodox, but
go a little over
if
the
you're
top.
and a white top hat.
Well, there was that, yeah, and white patent leather shoes. But aside from that, I look pretty normal.
Yeah, and then you brought all those props, which he always has props.
Oh,
So
don't
yes,
go
he
there.
does. Yeah, I won't. And so he had his props, and I come into the king's chamber, and he's waiting in there already. And he'd rushed ahead of all of us because we went to the subterranean first, and he was setting up, and sort of as Alan does, he's an absolute perfectionist, and so he was in there fidgeting with his computer, and he had a little stand for it, and the sound thing. It's all this is like a what are those it's not like a Rubik's Cube, but it's like the gold I can't remember the Rube Goldberg. The whole thing that's like, it's almost like a obstacle course, or like this very, very high degree of complexity.
Well, let's say there was a lot of props. Right?
Yeah.
And I had to balance them all on the side of the sarcophagus. So that didn't exactly endear me to the guard who was watching over everything. You can't do this.
Yeah, there's a guard in there.
Take this out.
And he's just sitting next to you, like over your shoulder. Here you are dressed as God, right? And literally the white hat, white suit, and it's hot as hell in there. Mm-hmm. And you pass out programs, and I'm like, oh, fuck's sake, what is going to happen now? And I'm like, well, thank God he made laminated programs because I could use it as a fan.
Yeah.
We were sweating like mad.
Yeah, it was hot.
And you started doing your thing and, trying to get the sound right and everything with your little computer speakers,
Mm-hmm.
And all of a sudden, something overcame me and just said, and I could literally feel the steam rising on my back. And then Matthias is like, maybe we should ask the space for permission to be sacrilegious in here or something. It's kind of like the feeling that I got.
Because he knew I was going to swear a bit.
Yeah. Exactly.
Well, he just had that intuition. I do have
No one's given a presentation like a performance with music, song, and dance in the Great Pyramid before. Let's be real. Right. And so here's Alan Green doing it for the first time, playing the part of God in a dialogue with his fragmented self.
Shakespeare.
Shakespeare.
And Moses.
And Moses.
Moses pops in as well.
Yeah, Moses definitely pops in with quite the accent. And oy vey. And it was just the most incredible experience. And by the end of it, actually about halfway through it, everyone in the room was in just total tears. It was beautiful. It was sublime. And I thought to myself, what an incredible journey we've been on. And so much of how I feel is I'm falling in love with it, which is interesting because I think that's the real purpose, to learn how to fall in love with life the way that it is. And, you know, I've seen pictures of Alan meditating. I think it was at Karnak Temple where he's got literally a rainbow bubble around him in photographs. And what an incredible journey we've been on and all the places we've gone. I can't even explain. And it feels like we're just on the cusp of it.
Oh.
This is about to like really, really blow up big.
Right now, doors are opening everywhere, and you can hardly keep pace with it. Doors of intuition, but also doors of opening to, I mean, you're already well along the way with a huge following for your work, right? I'm not a great promoter of my own work. I prefer to still stay in the cave and be finding more and more stuff. And I finally realized very recently, you got stop it, Alan. Of course you can find more. Stop. It's enough. Go out and show it and let people relax into it and enjoy it. And so yeah, there's all kinds of things happening. You asked for a synopsis. The only synopsis that I can give about that, what that was about, was just the title is Begin Again, a conversation between Shakespeare and God. But that's the nature of it, isn't it? We will never be really satisfied with the idea of, oh, I've made it back home. I've got it. I'm in divine consciousness, because there actually is a spiritual law, I believe, that it's an illusion. You can't go home and sit in bliss and say, oh, I made it, I'm home, when the rest of you is out there on God knows how many planets, in how many solar systems. The rest of you is still out there in pain. Because that part of you doesn't yet understand the drama, that pain, as real as it is to you as you're going through it, it's that in an eternity of, right? But still, you can't stand for your brothers or your sisters to be in pain. So it's the Bodhisattva vow, isn't it? That's what the Dalai Lama keeps coming back and back and back, vows to come back. Yogananda vowed. He has a poem where he says, I will come back if need be 1 trillion times, so long as one stray brother or sister is still waiting in delusion. Imagine. You've got the entire bliss of the universe. You're going to volunteer to keep coming back 1 trillion times to remind the rest of you. He says, I am just the awakened God, awakening the sleeping God in you. Yeah. So that's the setup. And someone's in kindergarten, and someone's a PhD, and someone's bloody Einstein. But wherever we are, we can't go home and just say, oh, I'm fine now. You can't do it, because the understanding is this is still me out there. The ideal would be to come back with still that consciousness, so that you don't have to suffer the delusion and go through the angst of, you remember what it was like falling in love for the first time when you're a teenager? Oh, God. Or school. Do I have to do that again? But if you can come back clear with, I know who I am. That's great. But the message behind what I had written, and I can't even say I wrote it, I know it was a complete download, and it was a gift, it was grace, it came through in one long gift, But of course, there's great fun in then crafting it and adding the music and putting it together and say, well, that's my bit.
We laughed, we cried. It was definitely.
Yeah, but the
amazing.
message is just that. It's just you are it. Get used to it, and enjoy the fact of you're going to come back again anyway. You're going to begin again, and this time do it with a bit more knowledge of who you truly are, so that you can help your fellow man more. Not to put too much of a mission statement on it, but just that's it. You mean, what else are you going to do for eternity? You're going to help yourself back home, and what Shakespeare says, what dreams may come. What dreams may come. What are we capable of? What are we capable of creating? We have no idea, but we're going to have fun as it unfolds. So
good, Alan. It was so amazing.
So that was the message of it. But what's happening right now is that, oh my goodness, all kinds of ridiculous things just happen, like faster and faster and faster. I went to Stratford to begin talking with the church. Those of your followers who know the work that I do, it revolves around the fact that I've discovered some codes that say very, very clearly that Shakespeare, whoever that was, left the truth inside an altar stone, a holy relic, in the Stratford Church. And my goal for the longest time is to open that, to get the church to understand that they should open that, because I radar scanned it rather covertly, and to get the truth of a scientific proof that the codes are real. The codes say it's in the altar stone, but if I didn't get the scientific proof, then I'm just a nutcase, right? I was going to say, oh, Alan, he's got this idea that there's something in the altar. But I went and proved it, and radar scanned it. So we've got a picture of what should be about that big, and instead of that big, it's 250 times bigger than that. You can see it on the Gaia show. I built an actual life-size model of it to show there's a hole in there, and it's full of stuff. So my goal, my journey, is to get the church to understand that, first of all, that was Shakespeare's last wish. He made the effort to literally put something in there for us to find. It's very clear. You don't go to that trouble to cut a hole into a block of solid marble that makes it almost hollow. You don't just do that on a lark unless you're going to put something in there of equivalent size. And the radar scan shows it. It's full of stuff. And since Shakespeare himself never left anything, there are no manuscripts, no poems, no plays, not a letter. He never wrote a letter to anyone. No one ever saw him. That's one of the most mind-boggling things of all. He's got the greatest 25-year career in London. He's like a cross between J.K. Rowling and Spielberg and Tom Cruise. And yet, anybody write about ever seeing him? I was at the Mermaid Tavern last night, and there was Bill having a pint and writing a scene from Macbeth. No,
Nobody.
No one ever saw him. He never traveled anywhere, and yet 10 of his plays are set in Italy, and he knows it like the back of his hand. So this is a mystery, right? So the answer to that mystery is in the altar stone. So I've been to the church to convince them that I can help them, and one of the ways I'm going to help them is to raise money for they have an organ renovation going on right now. It's costing them a lot of money. The organ is 135 years old and needed cleaning, needed taken out, and they haven't raised all the money for it yet. So I said, I can help you with that. I'll raise some money. But the ultimate goal is to just find the truth behind this big mystery. And it might be that it is the man from Stratford. It could be. Or it could be that it's someone else who many people think it is, Edward de Vere or Francis Bacon. I'm only interested in the truth of it. I really, truly am. After being 19 and a half years on this, nothing would surprise me if the whole thing was actually written to look like it was that. And then now you find out, no, it really was this guy after all. So I said that to the church. I went to the church and I said, whatever's in there, it's yours. It's on your property. You can open that. Since there is nothing. Shakespeare left nothing. If you found one page of Hamlet there, you could build a little museum next to your church, slap it up on a wall, and charge whatever you want for the world to see it, and the world would flock. your tourism would go up tenfold, hundredfold. It'd be like the Tut's tomb, you know, because it's a big deal. But it's far more than that. I know it is, right? So that's the goal. But I just wanted to tell a story of how doors are opening. I arrive in Stratford. I'm at Heathrow. I get my car. I rent a car. I drive. I don't even look at London. I drive straight up to Stratford. It takes me an hour and a half. I drive in there. And, you know, there's no parking anywhere in towns in England anymore. It's just ridiculous. The yellow jacket police are watching everything. You can park for 2 hours if you find a space, but then you can't go back to that space. You've got to move out. And so I pull up outside. I'd book myself a little bed and breakfast, not a fancy hotel or anything. And I drive into Stratford and I pull up, and there's one parking space right there, right next to the bed and breakfast that I've checked into. So I go, I've got a parking space. I get my ticket, put it on the windshield. I go into the mini hotel, the bed and breakfast, take my cases up to my room, like you do, you know, just freshen up, hang my clothes up, and I come out because I know I've now got to find a permanent spot because I can't just leave my car there all the time. I've got to go and find an overnight parking space. And I sit in my car, and I'm just about to drive away, and there's this woman about 5 feet away, standing literally in the doorway of the bed and breakfast that I just checked into. And she's looking at me intently. And I thought, why is she looking at so intently? And I thought, oh, they probably want this parking space. It's valuable. I rolled down the window to say, yeah, there's still an hour and a half left on this ticket. Do you want to pull your car in? I'm going out. You can have this ticket. And she goes, oh, my God, it's you. I went, what? You're the guy that has the Shakespeare show on Gaia. What? Yeah. She says, oh, I knew it. Long story short, she got up that morning, told her husband, Dale, we've got to go to Stratford-on-Avon. They live in Lincolnshire, 2 hours away. She's a psychic. She's an intuitive. She does the same sort of woo-woo shit that we do.
Speak for yourself.
And she's there. She woke up. She said, Dale, we've got to go to Stratford. And Dale, tired of fighting her, says, this is what it's like, Alan. She's like this all the time. I just follow. Whatever she says, I just go. He's a big, burly guy, huge, like bouncer type of guy. She says, we drove here this morning. We've never been to Stratford. We're English. We've never been to Stratford in our lives, but I just got the memo. I've got to go to Stratford. What? Comes to Stratford. She said, we were at a pub up the road, sitting there, and after about 5 minutes, I said to Dale, this is not it. This is not right. No, we've got to go somewhere else. Let's leave and get out of the pub. And she walked about a quarter of a mile to the bed and breakfast and stood there. And just as I come out, she sees me. What? I mean, talk about angels choreographing things. How does that happen? She just knew. And she's standing there, and I happen to be parked there. And we had dinner later that night, and I'm going to be on her podcast eventually. She's got a small podcast thing going. She's an intuitive. She's a channeler. She does automatic writing, but she's only been on that journey for 5 years. She said, I knew nothing about this 5 years ago, and all of a sudden the voices kept coming through. And you can look at that with a bit of scans and say, oh, yeah, the voices are coming through there. But no, when something like that happens, she's right.
Yeah.
She didn't know why. Mm-hmm. We had to connect. Mm-hmm. Things like that are happening. Bum, bum. I could tell you 4 or 5 things like that.
Oh, it's like the thing that happened the other night at Blues House when Matthias was saying that his favorite place to go in Scotland was Clavicairn, and I was like, wait, where? I said, where do you like to go? He said, it's in the Highlands. You wouldn't know it. No one goes there.
Yeah.
And he said, I go to this place called Castle Urquhart. It's on the Loch Ness. And then right by there is this place called Clavicairn. It's a time portal. It's got Orion's Belt. And I was like, what? And then I looked at the map because I remembered some reference to Clavicairn, these 3 mounds, that was in the television show Outlander. And so, and I knew it was a famous time portal or something in the show as well. And then I go and look the location of it, and it's right next to Inverness. And of course, 10 years ago, I had tried to buy my family's castle, which was called Castle Grant, right in the exact same area. In fact, this place, Clavicarian, would be on the whole area of, between Urquhart Castle, which is also Grant Castle, and then this castle, and Clavicarian is right in between the two of them, and on the same land.
And it's your ancestral
family? And it's
family?
Orion's Belt, yes.
It's your ancestral family?
Yes.
But you only found that out the other night
at the party we were at.
And he said,
yes,
I love going there, and it just happens to be your
And he'd been going to Castle Grant the whole time.
And he didn't know.
No, he didn't connect the two things.
Even though you were
he knew it was called Grant Tower, but he didn't connect
make a connection. No.
Yeah. Incredible.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just like, that's a little weird, don't you think? It's a bit bizarre. So it's just, come on. I mean, come on. So, where do you think, I guess, if you could make a prediction, Alan, on where this is all going to go and how, without going too deeply into the codes and such we found, but if you could kind of like put on or hold the crystal ball for a moment. We've recently found that thanks to your addition that you brought into our team of Robert Comber, we now have some expertise in astrology. It's almost as if we've been going through arithmetic. We really started heavy with numbers. Then I went deep into geometry, right? You were there as well. Then we went deep into music, and now we're going deep into cosmology.
It's almost as if...
Sounds like the quadrivium, doesn't it?
Yeah. What is that, Robert? What is the quadrivium?
Well, it's interesting. I've been watching this. I've been watching this new TV show on Netflix right now called The Last Airbender. It's worth watching.
I haven't seen it.
And there's this scene where this little boy, who's the Avatar, right? He's the Avatar.
Yeah.
And this little boy is in an astral travel or something. He's talking to some woman who is ascended clearly, and she's telling him to be the Avatar, you have to be able to embody the guide, the general, the mediator, all these different aspects. And the Avatar has the unique characteristic that he is not, or she is not only having the ability to be an airbender, it also has to be a waterbender and also an earthbender and also
I know where this is going. Okay, the five elements.
Four elements, and then the fifth being
and
ether,
the fifth,
right?
Ether, yeah.
And that's probably going to emerge somehow in the show.
Right? But there's going to be an ether bender, obviously.
Yeah, there's going to be a bender of all of these. But but what she said was, in order for you to achieve the Avatar state, one must master the four elements. Which, of course, are really just a metaphor as well for the different representation in the quadrivium, which is also air, water, earth, and fire. And that is geometry, numbers. So number is number in itself. Geometry is number in space. Music is number in time. And cosmology is number in space-time.
As John Dee said, and many others have said, all is number. He wrote that very, very clearly in his writings. It's all number.
So thanks to your bringing Robert Comber in, we realized that all these things that we thought were maybe telling a story of Orion, that's what I had posited all along, that there was a hero's journey story on the walls of the Great Pyramid in the King's Chamber. And then all of a sudden he points out, wait, so you found a bull on this wall, and you found a woman riding a horse, or possibly a stag, or maybe it's a flying horse, shooting a bow and arrow at an eagle. And I said, yeah. And he said, and you've got a king and a lion on the west wall. And I said, yeah. And he goes, all of those are deacons in astrology, in the exact right positions. He says the woman riding the Pegasus is Delphinus shooting the Sagitta arrow at the Aquila, and those are exactly the order within Capricorn. And then you've got, he says, well, if that's the case, there's probably a fish somewhere embedded into the wall next to the eagle's wing. Can you see one on there? And I said, well, it looks like there might be an eye there. It looks like a vesica. Oh, it has a tail. There's a fish right next to the eagle's wing. Is that where it's supposed to be? Yes, that's exactly where Piscis Austrinus is supposed to be. So then we start realizing that it literally is like a planetarium. And we find now 40 of these constellations. Where's this going? And there must be a reason why.
Well, how many decans? There's 36.
There's 36,
36
plus
decans.
there's 12 of the 12 zodiac signs.
Yeah, but the 36 are within those 12 zodiac signs.
That's right.
So each zodiac sign has 3 decans. How many plays are there in Shakespeare's
36.
works, the first folio?
36.
36. And that entire first folio that was published in 1623 is called the complete works of Shakespeare, though it's not, it's just the plays, doesn't include the sonnets or the poems, but much against my better judgment, I let you convince me that maybe there are references to these various decans in the plays. And I know that's a rabbit hole I don't want to go down, because that's another year. But probably have to.
Well, then Matthias looks at you and says, because he called me one day, like before he even knew you, and he said, oh, I got this download. I put all these books around me, but the one book that was missing was the book on Shakespeare's works. And he said the entity I was channeling was telling me that all the secrets in the universe are in the Shakespeare's works. And I said, oh, I need to introduce you to Alan Green. And
yeah, and the interesting thing is, he said he went out on intuition and bought. He was told by Spirit that you must gather all the major spiritual books that you can find and we're telling you they're all encoded, right? So, and you must arrange them in the shape of the King's Chamber in the Great Pyramid, which is basically just a rectangle that is 2 by 1. So he arranges them all around himself in his home, and there's 32 of them. And then he gets the intuition, clear as day, there's a book missing. But he didn't understand the basic reference to the idea of 33. What is 33? Right? 33rd level of Freemasonry, 33 what's it in the spine, 33 connectors in the spine. What are they called?
Vertebrae.
Vertebrae, thank you. I'm good with codes. I'm having a bit of trouble with remembering my wife's names at the moment. But aside from that, you would kind of clear the cash out from time to time, don't you? Like, oh, I should have kept that. What was that? So he tells me, he says, there's a book missing. And I said, well, that would make 33, wouldn't it? Yeah, so, I mean, Matthias is brilliant in his area, but he just didn't happen to know what that was. And of course, it's the ultimate. And all of the Shakespeare encodings are all tied to Rosicrucians and Freemasonic symbolism. And, it's all very clear once you see it. So 33 is important. So he's got to get the 33rd book. I don't know if I told you this. I just know, when you were doing the integration after, on that Egypt trip, and you told us to break up into certain numbers of groups, and we all ended up groups, and I ended up in Matthias's group. And I happened to say, I said, last night when I did the performance in the King's Chamber, Begin Again, and it finished, and then you started to do the chanting and introducing people to the sarcophagus. But I was sitting behind the sarcophagus then, utterly soaked to the skin, right? I mean, it was like I'd been in a swimming pool. I mean, I was utterly just drenched. And I'm sitting there on the air conditioner going, I know, the first thing I know is Matthias comes around and he's doing his around me, and I'm going, okay, this has got to be good. Whatever it is, I just relax. He's going, But I can hear him saying some words, but I couldn't distinguish what it was he was saying. So when we did the integration in our breakout groups, I asked him, I said, well, do you remember what you were saying, or is this just sort of intuitively coming to you and you don't really know? And he says, no, I know what I was saying. I said, well, what were you saying? He said, you just delivered the 33rd book. Seriously, that's what he said. I mean, oh. Wow. So, there's something powerful that we don't even realize. I was knocked out by people's response to what happened, and I was glad it landed and it worked. I knew it was good, but I didn't know. You don't know. You never know on what level it's working, right? Jason, our producer, came to me. 30 years of pain just evaporated from my life, in the King's Chamber. Carrie Fletcher said, I'll remember that on my deathbed. You go, wow. Same for you, like the things that you're discovering in the tuning that you've divinely been inspired to bring forth, precise tuning. People saying it's curing my cancer. Oh my God. We have no idea, do we? We've got no idea where the tangents from all this are going. So when he said that, I was just really floored and humbled, because you can't, what does that mean? I thought there'd be a Shakespeare book, a missing Shakespeare book. And he said, no, Spirit told me you just delivered the 33rd book. In other words, by putting Shakespeare's words next to God's words, next to Moses' words, next to all this wonderful music, Tchaikovsky's Romeo and Juliet, which kills you, right? But mixed in with, the Beach Boys and
that was so brilliant.
All by Myself by Eric Carmen and all the stuff. It's just fun. But
it feels like we're on this journey to find the new Earth.
Yeah. Well, Bacon, of course, wrote The New Atlantis with that in mind, right? Meaning America. Mm-hmm. America is the new Atlantis. The New Jerusalem. And again, in both our works and in our combined works, everything is pointing to that. But it's accelerating, and I must say for myself, I am at a point right now where I can just feel it. I'm going to go to Stratford shortly to continue the talks that I'm having with the church about opening that altar stone, because once that is open, the whole paradigm changes. I mean, whatever's in there is going to change the story of what we know about Shakespeare. And we know there's a mystery. It's obvious there's a mystery, because you can't live this existence of fame in London and no one ever see you. That's just mad. Yeah. No one talks about seeing you. So it's
you're launching a whole new thing today, right?
I'm literally launching it today. I was rushing to get it done by today, because I was thinking, Robert's podcast would be the perfect place to talk about this, because if you think back again, now let's go full circle when we first met. I told you it was my dream, my passion would be to launch something called the Shakespeare Foundation. In a nutshell on that, really, Edward de Vere, who's one of the people who I believe is the true Shakespeare. I know Bacon is involved as well. But he was the richest man in the country, in England, at that time, the Earl of Oxford. And he just sold all his lands, all his castles, all his mansions. He didn't care about money. Why? So that he had the resources to fund all the major poets of the time, whether it was Johnson or Lilly or Kidd or Marlowe, or he bought a place in London called Fisher's Folly. They would all congregate there. It was like a salon. And if somebody needed publishing, he funded them. Philosophers, burgeoning scientists at the beginning of the scientific revolution. He just spent all his money on that, on his own works as well. He did it, but he did it all kind of anonymously. And now we know from history, from records. That's what he was doing. He was kind of the original patron of the arts. And I had always wanted this work to culminate in, once that altar is opened, and once we find the actual manuscripts, the story is going to change, like from Wizard of Oz in black and white to Technicolor. It's going to go, suddenly there's a story behind who wrote all this stuff. There's the works come alive in ways you can't imagine because he's referencing his own events in his own life put into these stories. So it's great fun. So the idea was always, I would love to create a foundation. And I know that once the truth is out, well, my books, I've got one book out already called Decoding Shakespeare, but I've got another 2 that I haven't even published because I just thought, well, the time is not right. There's a time when this story comes out. I'll put those out then. Well, think of it, if the entire paradigm of who Shakespeare was and what his purpose was and what his message was, and it is far deeper than we had ever imagined, and he's a polymath, and he knows math and geometry, because, as you know, he's put the entire coordinates of the Great Pyramid on the cover of the sonnets and math constants. So the story's going to change. And so all that work that I've been doing for 19 and a half years now is finally coming to fruition, and it feels wonderful to know that it's got an audience now. That audience is building. The Gaia Show, my own podcast called Bardcast, and all of it's on my website, tobeornotttobe.org. But the crowning glory is I wanted to have a foundation, because think of it, if all that work now has to become required reading in where every school and college and university where they teach Shakespeare at all, no matter how small an amount, the story changes. That means the books that I've been working on almost in seclusion all these years must be sold to the students, and they must be sold to the professors who have to teach it, because you can't be teaching the old paradigm if there's a new paradigm.
Totally.
So you do the numbers on that and the number of schools there are on the planet, and it's $1 billion foundation, multi-billions ultimately, once it all gets fed into the fact that they're all teaching that story. Students have to buy those books year after year after year, semester. More money than I could ever spend, would even be interested in. It's just like, oh my God, that's billions. So it must go into a foundation. So I am launching. We've got the website. We hurriedly got it going for today because I didn't know if this was even going out live or it might be going out tomorrow or something. But it turns out it take a while to edit it. So you're the first person to kind of announce it, actually.
Yes.
I'm very thrilled.
I'm excited for this.
A foundation.
I'm excited to contribute to it as well.
You would?
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Definitely.
How much? Can I take a check now?
Well, yes. I will
heard it here
contribute.
first.
I will contribute the first $15,000.
Right, thank you.
Thank you.
It's for a very, very good cause. It's for the arts. What are the most underfunded, discipline in the whole quadrivium? It's the arts. There's a figure that I like to quote often. Thank you. That's beautiful. So we're going to launch it with that donation.
It's
Thank you very much.
been an honor working with you, Alan. It's been the joy of a lifetime as well to be on this journey together through time. And I really want to thank you, and I wish you all the best with this, because I know it can be an incredible success, and I know that it's not going to be anticlimactic. I know it's going to be big climax.
Props.
Yes, there will be props. I'm quite sure of that. So, but
and a white top hat. No, I just wanted to say that number. For every $100 that the U.S. government funds into science, I'm not saying that's not worthy. We have to fund science, scientific research, right? But for every $100 that goes to science, do you know how much goes to the arts? 46 cents.
Yes, it's tiny.
46 cents. So the arts are always the cut first, and that's always the underfunded arts. So the purpose of this is just to build up that, to have people come and say, yes, this is a worthy cause. It's going to go towards opening the altar. And when you imagine once the altar is open, my goodness, the floodgates will open. There'll be movies, there'll be TV series. It's kind of endless. I've written a musical that I hope I get on stage in this lifetime. But, you know, it's this magnificent message of truth, of who we are. And one of my favorite sayings is, I always quote it to you, fun is in Twelfth Night. And it's a character called Sir Toby Belch, which is a wonderful name because he's drunk throughout the whole play. And he's always belching, right? He's Sir Toby Belch. And he says twice, and then the clown echoes it twice. This non sequitur, he'll say his lines in the scene, and then he'll, as he's leaving, he'll go, oh, well, it's all one. And he's gone. It doesn't make any sense in the scene, except he's telling you the ultimate truth. It's all one.
I had the opportunity, and we'll end on this. I had the opportunity to have a nice chat with Randall Carlson, who is coming on this podcast in a couple of weeks, and super excited about it. I spent a couple hours on the phone with him the other night, and he said something to me that I thought was really beautiful. He said, the glory of God is to hide things. The glory of man is finding them.
That's pretty much what we've been saying, isn't it? That's the joy of it. Oh, it's a game. It's a treasure hunt. And it's all in here, if only we knew. It's actually inside us as well.
The game is afoot.
The game's afoot. Another very, very well-known Shakespeare quote.
Thank you, Alan. It's been such a pleasure working with you all these years, and I know we're going to have many more yet to come. And the journey just gets more and more exciting and interesting, doesn't it? And it's cool that we're coming together as this whole team of like different people from entirely different perspectives, that it is feeling a little bit like an Ascenders team, which is fabulous.
It needs it, because again, we can't all be doing, you know, we have our piece, not piece. I like to say now that instead of it takes a village, I say it takes a hamlet. Because, of course, you can't do it all alone. And that's the whole point. We are all connected, and we've all actually truly incarnated together. We're all in the same club, right?
Yeah.
We planned this.
We sure are. Thank you, Alan.
Thank you,
We'll
Robert.
see you next time.